Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you. We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining, but never doing anything about it. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action.
Another big jobs report, the U.S. economy adding 263,000 jobs in April. The unemployment rate sinking to a 49-year low.
Wow, lowest since 1969. Strong number, strong top-line number. Anything that gives you pause in this entire report?
It is a strong report, and it shows that companies are hiring, aggressively hiring. When I look at the trend here, you can see we had a very strong January. February, we were worried about the government shutdown and what that might have meant, but everything bouncing back here. When you look at the unemployment rate, 3.6%. I mean, these are generational low numbers, and you've got some record lows for some different job categories and sectors as well, and strong hiring in business and information services, in construction, 33,000 jobs there. And I've been watching manufacturing. I mean, if you want to really look for something to be worried about, I mean, maybe you look at manufacturing. It lost 6,000 jobs last month, and then this month had 4,000. On average, during the Trump administration, you've had 20,000, 20,000 plus.
So this is what we have now. This is where we were in 1960, and when we're finished, which won't be in too long a period of time, we will be less than where we were in 1960, and we will have a great regulatory climate. 1, 2, 3. I mean, maybe this should go to Chris, right? You work so hard. What do you mean? Come on, man. Get up here. Get up here. That's for you. You know, we're up to almost 400 miles of wall. Nobody talks about that anymore. And we now have the tightest, safest border in our country's history.
What you see here, only a fraction of what detectives, officers, and agents say they've seized in a 2-year-long investigation against one of the world's most notorious gangs. Drugs, including crack and cocaine, even fentanyl, are part of the seizure. So are guns and lots of one other weapon.
Machetes. This depicts how brutal and savage this gang is.
96 local people in or affiliated with the MS-13 gang were charged and arrested in an operation led by the DA in coordination with so many federal and state agencies, along with neighboring Nassau County Police, that there was barely room for them all at the podium. Make no mistake, they said, this is a big blow to gang crime.
We prevented over 10 violent acts, including murder, from happening. We cleared 3 homicides here in Long Island and 3 in Virginia.
Federal officials today will announce a breakthrough in the fight against MS-13. Hundreds of accused gang members and associates are under arrest. The Violet Street Gang is from El Salvador, but its mayhem is spreading in American neighborhoods. First on CBS This Morning, Margaret Brennan got rare access to the crackdown. It was led by a unit of ICE known as Homeland Security Investigations. She went to one of the deadliest battlegrounds, that's Long Island, New York. Margaret is at the White House, where the Trump administration is watching closely. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning. Well, cracking down on undocumented immigrants from Central America is part of the Trump administration's strategy to stop the growth of international gangs like MS-13. Operation Matador is the name of the joint law enforcement effort to capture and deport suspected gang members.
These are the latest deportees arriving back from the U.S.
Allá está el caballero, ahí le va su maleta.
Some, like 32-year-old Jose, are gang members.
So what do you think of the Trump policy now? He's deporting Salvadorans. He's really going after MS-13.
Karma's a bitch, and that's coming back, you know. We have done a lot of, I'm not gonna say me personally, but a lot of people in general, you know, have done a lot of hurtful shit to innocent people. And I think that people got tired of it, you know.
Jose joined MS-13 in the US at just 13 years old. He was deported back directly from a US prison.
This is important. We've seen dozens of stories now over the last 2-3 years where college men have been accused of sexual assault, and almost every aspect of their due process rights have been denied. They have not been allowed to confront their accuser, that they and their lawyers have not been allowed to see the evidence against them. This has been kangaroo court in your progressive, feminized, ridiculously feminized universities. Now this puts back due process. What Betsy DeVos did just simply says, men are perceived innocent until they are proven guilty. You cannot run over constitutional rights.
We'll have appointed close to 300 federal judges by the end of the first term, including 2 great Supreme Court justices. So we will have appointed a record number of judges, including appellate judges. It's an incredible achievement. There are those that think it's maybe the most important.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So let me make you a promise. With 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House, we're going to respect the religious freedom of every American of every faith. And we're going to end the assault on religious liberty once and for all.
So today, under the authority vested in me as President of the United States, I am announcing the creation of a new monument to the giants of our past. I am signing an executive order to establish the National Guard of American Heroes, a vast outdoor park that will feature the statues of the greatest Americans to ever live.
New law signed by President Trump yesterday allows terminally ill patients easier access to experimental drugs. 8-year-old Jordan McGlynn celebrated the long-awaited moment by hugging the president. That's a good hug, Jordan.
Right to Try makes good on one of President Trump's campaign promises, but the bill is not without controversy. Opponents argue it's risky and doesn't give better access to drugs, but proponents, like 8-year-old Jordan and his mom, believe it could be life-saving. As President Trump signed the Right to Try bill Wednesday, 8-year-old Jordan McGlynn went in for a hug. He missed the first few times, but eventually they embraced. A hug years in the making. Jordan has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a genetic degenerative disease with an average life expectancy of around 25 years.
With the Right to Try law I'm signing today, patients with life-threatening illnesses will finally have access to experimental treatments that could improve or even cure their conditions. These are experimental treatments and products that have shown great promise, and we weren't able to use them before. Now we can use them. The Right to Try also offers new hope for those who either don't qualify for clinical trials or who have exhausted all available treatment options. There were no options, but now you have hope. You really have hope. But as I proudly sign this bill, thousands of terminally ill Americans will finally have the help, the hope, and the fighting chance, and I think it's going to be better than chance, that they will be cured, that they will be helped, that they'll be able to be with their families for a long time, or maybe just for a longer time.
this man when he was a candidate, what are you going to do about race and racism? He said, we're Americans. We all bleed the same. We need for people to be safe, secure, blessed, working if they need to. And so I just want to say thank you. You keep your promises, so keep going, sir. Go!
Yes, I've been here 3 hours waiting for this.
I bet they'll hold that vote open for us, Chuck.
That's great, Chuck. There you go, Chuck.
Worth the wait, worth the wait.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. That's great. Signatures today, we will formally declare the intention of our three countries to replace NAFTA with the USMCA. The USMCA is the largest, most significant, modern, and balanced trade agreement in history. All of our countries will benefit greatly. It is probably the largest trade deal ever made also. In the United States, the new trade pact will support high-paying manufacturing jobs and promote greater access for American exports across the range of sectors, including our farming, manufacturing, and service industries. As part of our agreement, the United States will be able to lock in our market access to Canada and Mexico and greatly expand our agricultural export.
Well, I think it was an excellent decision. Look, the Paris Accord is a self-licking ice cream cone. Its purpose is to exist. In the short term, it really would have had next to no effect. The danger was in the longer term. In the short term, it's a bunch of national programs that you could have devised any way you wanted. The overall effect on climate by any reputable scientific analysis is zero. And countries like India and China basically said, our program for reducing carbon emissions will begin in 2030. So the near-term effect was remote. Why would anybody agree to something like that? Because of the failure of the predecessor agreements, Kyoto and Copenhagen. What they wanted was an agreement on anything to create the foundation for what they're really interested in, which is more international control over national decision-making. This is really a global governance issue, which the Europeans just love, which Barack Obama just loved, which Donald Trump has now rejected.
What I'm liking about NATO is that a lot of countries have stepped up, I think really at my behest, and also yourself, you're close to the level. But they've stepped up and they put up a lot of money. I told you it was $130 million, $130 billion. And that's a lot. And they're now stepping up again. It's going to be $400 billion over very short. We have commitments for $400 billion. And we just left the Secretary General, and he's got some things that are very important, and I discussed with him the flexibility so that we have it not just with one area of the world. You and I discuss this all the time. We have all areas of the world because NATO's a lot different than it was, and now it's certainly a lot different over the last 3 years. So we have a lot of countries stepping up and putting up a lot of money. The number as of this moment is exactly $131 billion. That's a year, and that's a tremendous amount of money. But it's not enough. And they also raise and have commitments for $400 billion. So NATO, which was really heading in the wrong direction 3 years ago, is heading down. If you look at a graph, it was to a point where I don't think they could have gone on much longer. Now it's actually very strong and getting stronger. And instead of never-ending wars, we are forging peace in the Middle East.
We're going to begin with the Iran nuclear deal. Candidate Trump promised to pull out of it. Today, President Trump did. The president, who calls the deal defective at its core, is reimposing economic sanctions on Iran. In response, Iran's president threatened to start enriching uranium again.
The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them. The Iran deal is defective at its core. If we do nothing, we know exactly what will happen. In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapons. The longest suffering victims of Iran's leaders are, in fact, its own people. Rather than use its resources to improve Iranian lives, its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. This wealth, which rightly belongs to Iran's people, also goes to shore up Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship, fuel Yemen's civil war, and undermine peace throughout the entire Middle East. We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me. It is time for the entire world to join us in demanding that Iran's government end its pursuit of death and destruction. It is time for the regime to free all Americans and citizens of other nations that they have unjustly detained. And above all, Iran's government must stop supporting terrorists, begin serving its own people, and respect the sovereign rights of its neighbors.
Iran's general Qasem Soleimani. He'd reportedly just gotten into Iraq from Beirut and was leaving Baghdad airport when he was killed in a convoy of vehicles along with a top Iraqi militia leader. President Trump tonight.
Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him.
The imminent attacks planned by Soleimani targeted U.S. diplomats, U.S. military personnel, and facilities that house Americans in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and the region of the Middle East, a senior State Department official told reporters today.
This time, the strikes went to the very heart of the enterprise, to the research, to development, to storage. So we are very confident that we have significantly crippled Assad's ability to produce these weapons.
The appearance of this outfit convulsed world politics for several years, struck fear into the hearts of people all around the world.
Islamic State is the most vicious and murderous jihadist regime the world has ever seen. In 2017, it will be smashed.
The defeat of Islamic State will be one of the most significant things to happen in 2017. This was the biggest, boldest attempt by jihadism to set up an alternative form of government, to defy not just the West, to defy the whole world order, to defy lines on maps, to create a completely religious-based and extremely violent government.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. The United States has been searching for Baghdadi for many years. Capturing or killing Baghdadi has been the top national security priority of my administration. U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style. The U.S. personnel were incredible. I got to watch much of it. No personnel were lost in the operation, while a large number of Baghdadi's fighters and companions were killed with him.
ISIS's self-proclaimed caliphate in Syria and Iraq came to an end on March 23rd, when the Syrian Democratic Forces, backed by the US-led international coalition, liberated the town of Baghouz after a tough 6-week battle. A terrorist entity once the size of Great Britain is no longer.
And did you see what happened today, right? Did you see it? Sudan, another country that just came into the deal. Peace, you know what this is? Peace in the Middle East without blood all over the sand.
The US president has once again been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, this time for his role in brokering the peace agreement and normalizing relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The nomination also comes months after he unveiled the Middle East peace plan in January this year. Should he win this year, he will become the 5th US president to do so. Trump's recent achievements include becoming the first US president to step into North Korea when he crossed the demilitarized zone in June 2019. The ties with Pyongyang had earned him his first nomination for organizing the first summit in Singapore in June 2018, which was followed by the second round of talks in Hanoi in February 2019. He did take a bold step of opening the US embassy in Jerusalem in May 2018 and also initiated the trade war with China, which led to the signing of the US-China trade deal in 2020. Considering these achievements and the landmark agreement, Trump will be hopeful about being second-time lucky and remains optimistic about global peace.
A lot of big news is coming over the next few weeks, and I'm sure you'll be very impressed, and more importantly, it's a great thing for our country, a great thing for the world.
And I have to say, this is a momentous occasion. A president with 3. First, it was astonishing that there was 1, and then 2, right. But a 3rd Nobel Peace Prize nomination for his foreign policy, which amounts to a more modest, if you will, a humble foreign policy, and without question, an America First doctrine that has served this nation well, both as domestic policy and foreign policy. I'd like to get your reaction.
You know, I don't think a president has had this kind of foreign policy success in his first term. You have to really go back to Nixon and Kissinger for the kind of extraordinary successes President Trump's had. And how did he do it? Well, as those Australian professors said, he used common sense and he did things differently than anybody's done them before. So what's President Trump done? Well, the first thing he did was rebuild the American military. That was great. That was pretty much expected. But he stood up to China. No American president has done that. And he got new trade deals. He got new trade deals in Asia. He got new trade deals in Europe. He got our European allies to contribute $500 billion more towards our common defense. But most importantly, the Abraham Accords, Slew, these are so significant. I mean, not only do we not need to be in the middle of the Middle East wars, we don't need to be held hostage by the oil supplies, but he has brokered the first deal between Arabs and Jews, not in 30 or 40 years, but how about 1,000 years? This is something that will go down in history as one of the great national security, foreign policy achievements of any administration. Not only does it make the Middle East a lot safer and a better place, but it really helps American security in the long run.
הסכם מבורך לשני הצדדים, שיתוף פעולה, תיירות, שלום, מוסלמים, יהודים, נוצרים, כולם ביחד, תענוג גדול, אנחנו כבר מחכים להגיע, מחכים שתגיעו אלינו.
שבצד הזה שהם יראו שעם ישראל הוא שוחר שלום, לא שוחר מלחמה.
שהלוואי שהם יבואו לבקר, ואנחנו נבוא לבקר אצלם, ויפתח איזה חלון הזדמנויות, ונכיר עולם חדש. וזה נשמע לי מסקרן וכיף.
ונשמח שיתארחו אצלנו. רוצה להכיר את כל המדינה. שמעתי דברים נפלאים. מקום מדהים.
שלום בר קיימא, שבו שני העמים נהנים אחד מהשני, עושים עסקים, מטיילים ביחד, מכירים את התרבות אחד של השני. ברוכים הבאים ו-Welcome to Israel. ואני אשמח בהזדמנות הראשונה לעלות על מטוס ולהגיע אליכם.
אני שמח מאוד על ההסכם החדש עם האמירויות והנסיכות. אני מחכה גם להגיע לדובאי. אחלה. היי.
אני רואה בזה פתח לשלום, בעזרת השם, עם כל מדינות הערב. ומה שיש לי להגיד לאמיריסטים זה שהם הולכים להכיר עם חם, עם ישראלי חם. עם ישראל זה עם שיודע לעשות שמח, ראינו שהם מאוד מקבלים ומאוד שמחים ומאוד חמים כמונו.
ושיכירו אותנו, את הישראלים האמיתיים. אנחנו לא קיצונים, אנחנו אוהבים את האחר, אוהבים את השונה, אוהבים לחבק ואוהבים לאהוב. שלום לאמירויות, אוהבים אתכם.
If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward.